Okay. Are we good? That sounds better. Good evening. I'm going to call to order the Historic Preservation Board meeting of November 1st, 2023. And I need to check to see if the recorder is on.
Yes.
Okay. And has everybody signed in and coming in? And if anybody is going to speak about non-agenda items, they will have to be, they need to be able to sign up or have signed up. So, Madam Secretary, Diane, could you call the roll?
John Miller,
Here.
Peter Dwyer,
Here.
Chris Cabezas,
Here.
John Brewer,
Here.
Ivan Heredia, absent, Kristen Finn,
Here.
Jim Chard.
Here. Are there any changes in the agenda?
We have had a request from one of the applicants, item 8C, to ask the board if they would revise the agenda to hear their item first.
I would like to move to change item 8C to the first item on the agenda tonight.
Second.
And quasi-judicial.
Sorry. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
We'll call the
And
roll.
Oh, yeah.
If you could just do an approval of the agenda as amended, I think that's the
Okay.
motion she's really looking for right now.
Would you like to?
Like to move the approval of the agenda as amended.
Second.
Call the roll?
John Miller,
Yes.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Chris Cabezas,
Yes.
John Brewer,
Yes.
Ivan Heredia, absent, Kristen Finn,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes. I do not, well, we do need to talk about the minutes. I don't think there are any minutes to be approved, so we can move on that. And the next is swearing in of the public.
If anybody plans to speak tonight, if you can just stand so that you can be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on an issue that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. So the first item is going to be what was C on the agenda. We've approved that change, and that is COA 2020.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have something under presentations, just as a note to the public. My apologies.
Please go
Chair.
ahead. That's fine.
Yeah. So just a note to the public for those who are tuning in and those who are in attendance. The city hosted the Atlantic Avenue Historic District Symposium last Thursday and Friday. This symposium hosted 4 professionals, experts in their fields, to talk about preservation from a standpoint of economics, law, planning, architecture, and preservation-based backgrounds. The symposium is available online for those to watch. So here is the website. We are going to touch on this probably again during reports and comments, but for those people who watch and maybe don't stay tuned in the whole meeting, I just wanted to take a moment to cover this. That's all. Thank
That's
you.
all. Okay. Sorry to skip over that.
No, you're fine.
So that does bring us then to our quasi-judicial hearing. And we are going to start with what was item C, a certificate of appropriateness 2023-154.
And if you could, Mr. Chair, read in the quasi-judicial rules before we get started.
Alright. I'm getting better at this. The new people here today may not know that. This hearing shall be conducted in accordance with the City of Delray Beach quasi-judicial rules. The applicant and the city shall be permitted to present their case. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each, or a maximum of 6 minutes if the person represents an organization or a group of people who are present but agree not to speak. The City Commission, board, members, staff, and the applicant may be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant will be allowed to offer rebuttal testimony. The city and the applicant will be allowed. The decision to approve or deny an application or an appeal may not legally be made upon the personal views as to whether a project is a good project or not, nor a decision may be based on the numbers of citizens who support or oppose a particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether the project meets the requirements of the law, the city's comprehensive plan, or the city's land development regulations.
For the record, I'm Katharina Palavoda, Historic Preservation Planner. I'd like to enter COA 2023-154 into the record. It's a level 2 landscape plan, architectural elevations, and certificate of appropriateness for the property located at 525 East Atlantic Avenue, known as the Colony Hotel, and it's individually listed to the local Register of Historic Places. Okay, their agent will be presenting. Royce Simon.
And just as they're passing it over to him, would you mind asking the board if there's any ex parte communications?
All right. Starting on my left, any ex parte communications on this issue?
No.
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 I've had brief conversations with Hillary Roche and Roy Simon on this in the past, and it will not influence my decision.
None.
Nope. Thank you. First of all, let me thank you for moving us forward. I'm Roy Simon, architect for this Colony Hotel project. Miss Rose, who's the co-owner of the hotel, will be assisting me. I thank you for moving us forward. My wife was on hospice critical care, and she did pass away last night.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you for letting us go through. Very simply, where's this will be used? You know how to do that. I'm still old school. The Colony Hotel on Atlantic Avenue, 525. They do their own laundry and for linens and towels, and they have a maintenance unit, and it's in the building. Let's show this. Let's move on. This is the overall property view, aerial view of the property. The hotel is on Atlantic Avenue on the south side, and way up at the top is a part of the parking lot. I don't know where. Anyway, this is a site plan. North is to your right. It's that way because that's the way the survey came, and all the drawings are based on that. The little building to the right, it's a 28 by 48 square foot building to house a laundry unit and the maintenance building. And we set it back there for easy access. Now, this is the alley that goes back to it. That's the building that they are currently in. And it's in the 20s. The site of the building will be that between that car and the coming eastward. That's looking south from the building site, the existing building and the dumpster enclosure. This is the building. I'm sorry it didn't come out better on the screen, but it's a little building with the laundry on the side. They have their ironer, the washing machines, dryers, and an ironer. We propose to air condition it, and it's self-contained with hot water, etc. The structure is sort of a replica of the existing buildings. We're using carriage doors matching the existing on that building you saw we passed. And a lot of the patterns that we're using are very similar to what's existing. Just to fit in, it's only about 12 feet tall. But that's the front elevation of the front is the multiple doors, the double doors. And then the rest of the doors are carriage built. On the north side, we have the ventilation for the dryer machines. And those are louvers, all painted white. The windows match those in the hotel. And the doors match the carriage house. The light fixtures are duplicates of what's on the existing building. Next, and that was what it is when we built it, we hope. And the floor plan, that's the larger scale of it. It's a very simple building with a restroom in it and the utilities. And then that's the landscape plan. It's natural, Florida natural landscaping, and we're going to landscape around the building, but everything else remains the same. Maybe fix it up a little bit. And this lady, this is where they are now. So that's all we have to say unless you've got questions.
Thank you. I think staff will go ahead and do their presentation, and then they'll call you back up if you have any questions. If they have any questions, thank you.
So this is as previously mentioned, this is a level 2 site plan, landscape plan, architectural elevations, and a certificate of appropriateness. We do have some history about the property written in the staff report. I just want to read a few paragraphs of it just for the record. Okay, the Colony Hotel is located at 525 East Atlantic Avenue. It was Albert T. Repp, who was a Delray businessman since 1914, who owned the present Colony Hotel site, formed the Delray Hotel Corporation with J.C. Keene, H.E. Evans, Dr. L. Love, and Jack Bird. The hotel was constructed in 1925 as the Altarep Hotel, and it was created in the Spanish colonial Mission Revival architectural style, designed by prominent Miami architect Martin Luther Hampton. The Miami architecture firm Hampton and Inman is credited with the Miami Post Office and Municipal Court building, which are on the National Register of Historic Places. Additions to the Flagler Whitehall and the Breakers Hotel in Palm Beach. Hampton was the principal architect and planner for the city of Coral Gables. Associated with Meisner, Hampton was the architect of the 1920 Delray Beach City Hall, now demolished. He's also associated with the 400, 500, and 600 blocks of Lincoln Road and the Miami Beach Congregational Church. Following the 1928 hurricane, Samuel Ogren Sr. designed the 3-story attached Spanish-style building to the rear, which is the north of the hotel. The addition included the first floor garages, second and third floor, which were sleeping areas. The building features a stucco exterior, a barrel tile trim, and at the time, the town's only pedestrian overpass, which is on the east-west part of the alley. In 1926, the Altarep foreclosed due to construction bond financing, and after 10 years of litigation, George W. Boughton purchased the hotel in 1935 from the Trust Company of Florida for $50,000, and the name was changed to the Colony Hotel. The Colony Hotel has been in the Boughton family for nearly 90 years, and the property is zoned CBD, which is our central business zoning district, and the property was designated to the local Register of Historic Places on March 26, 1991. So the request this evening is for the construction of a 1,344 square foot detached accessory structure, which is going to be, it's detached from the existing individually designated structure and is located on the rear of the property. The proposed accessory structure will be utilized for the laundry facilities and the maintenance and facilities and maintenance operations. Okay. So here is the proposed floor plan where you can see where the proposed use is going for maintenance and laundry. This is the proposed landscaping. As Mr. Simon did mention, all of the existing landscaping that is on site will remain, and they do have proposed shrubs that will be placed around the proposed structure. Okay, so here are some images of the site. So this is the north west corner of the property. This is the proposed location of the addition. We do see that they do have parking here. As we discussed with the owner, this isn't part of their required parking. They do have more than enough required parking. This is just kind of overflow. So the fact that there's parking there is not a concern. Okay, here's a more broader location of the proposed addition area. And this is also the northwest location of the property. This is more towards the east, facing Federal. Okay, this is the image of one of the existing parts of the structure. So as Mr. Simon said, the proposed addition will be similar to this style and construction of this this structure. Okay, so this is looking south. So the proposed addition is going to be in the vacant space right here. Okay, another image. This is the west corner of the site. So here's the proposed elevations. As Mr. Simon did mention, all of the materials, the color, and also the style of this structure will match what is existing on site. Okay, here's the proposed east side elevation. This is the west side. And then the rear proposed north. Okay, here's the rendering. This is the rear northeast rendering. And then another rear northeast rendering, and then you can see the existing structure in the rear. Okay, these are the Secretary of the Interior standards, as well as the visual compatibility standards. Based on our review, these are excerpts from our staff report. We don't really have any concern with the proposal. The structure is secondary and subordinate to the 3-story existing hotel, and it's placed in the rear. We also did note that if this structure were to be removed, it would not affect the historic integrity of the 1925 structure because it's not attached. So there are no concerns regarding any visual compatibility standards. This is the proposed material. And then these are findings. This is findings for our certificate of appropriateness, as well as findings for the level 2 site plan, landscape plan, and architectural elevation findings. And that concludes my presentation.
May I add something at this moment?
Well, certainly.
This is the first time the board is seeing the updated Chapter 2 amendment that was approved by City Commission recently. Chapter 2 is our process section of the code. So you'll note we'll refer to things as level 2, where in the past we were calling them class 3, class 4, class 5. So just in case that comes up, the new findings are included. This is the first time you're seeing this. So just in case you had any thoughts on that, we've done the complete analysis and will continue for other projects as they move forward with the new chapter update for chapter 2. Thanks.
Okay, is there any rebuttal from the applicant?
Could just see if there's any public comments first. Thank you.
Are there any public comments? Now, if there are any rebuttals. Roy? No? And no questions from staff? I guess it comes to the board then.
I mean, I'll start. I think it's.
I was going to ask Kristen to start.
Okay, go ahead.
She always waits until the end.
I do wait to the end because I saved the best for last. I'm the only girl up here now besides the Attorney Kelly. So, I think it's great. The new laundry facility, like they said, it's insubordinate. It's to the rear. I like that they're mimicking the same style as the hotel. I fully support it.
John, now.
Thank you. I'm in support. I think it's modest. It's very appropriate to the existing structure. There's no variances or waivers asked for. Obviously, it's going to be secondary. I think what this does is allow the colony as an operation to operate more efficiently, which then helps them as a business itself, which allows the cornerstone and the anchor of our downtown to be a successful enterprise, which is what we want to do. We want to allow these historic structures to continue to operate and be successful so they're maintained for the future. So I'm in full support.
John Brewer.
I don't have anything to add, just heartfelt condolences, Mr. Simon. Condolences. No questions, just one.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Peter?
No, I think it looks good. I have no questions. Looks very appropriate.
The only thing I would like to add is, if you know this, or if maybe this is a question, was any landscaping thought about for the front here around those doors? And I know for some buildings you do need landscaping on the front facade of certain structures, and I'm wondering if that was considered.
Senior landscape planner found the proposal to be in compliance with requirements of the code.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I do like to see some taller vegetation, looking at the landscape specifically, but I like the use of the native plants. I think the building is designed well and fits with the character. I think it's a great addition to the business, so I'm in support of this.
I would only ask to see the street view from the Fifth Avenue side. That we kind of jumped over that, and I wasn't quite sure what somebody traveling south on Fifth would see.
So this building is set back very far into the site. I think it's 67 feet into the site. So there already is an existing, I believe it's a maybe 8-foot tall hedge line that's along Fifth. I'm not sure that we have an exact photograph of it. That is looking east. Do you have one looking west? Right there. So it's going to be set into the site. Service and maintenance type uses should be subordinate in the CBD to the main building. You'll note in the staff report that the interpretation was made that the building is service-based and should be subordinate, making way or space for any addition in the future that would be up on Fifth Avenue. So you're really
There was one elevation that did show what looked like vents and
that's on the north.
That's on the north side. Okay,
Yeah.
Not the west.
That's
Okay.
correct,
All
yeah.
right. Any other thoughts? Do I hear a motion? John? The other John?
Yes, no. Someone else has it ready. Go ahead.
I'll be happy to.
There you go.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we approve the Level 2 site plan, landscape plan, and architectural elevations and certificate of appropriateness 2023-154 for the property located at 525 East Atlantic Avenue, known as the Colony Hotel, individually listed to the local Register of Historic Places, by finding that the request and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
A second.
Call the roll.
John Miller,
Yes.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Chris Cabezas,
Yes.
John Brewer,
Yes.
Ivan Heredia is absent, Kristen Finn,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say, I'd like to thank the staff too, because they really reached out to us a lot and helped guide the process. And so it was a long process, but you were very helpful.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Okay, now we go back to A.
For the record, I'm Michelle Hewitt, planner, and I'd like to read into the record COA 2024-007. This is a certificate of appropriateness for 143 South Swinton Avenue. The agent is here and owner is here to present their project.
As he's coming up, if you wouldn't mind asking for ex parte communications from the board. Thank you.
Starting with John Brewer.
Nope.
No.
No.
None.
None.
No.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, board. Thanks for having us, or good evening, I should say. My name is Jaime Mayo with H&M Architecture. I'm here today to present our request for 2 wall signage on our new building at 143 South Swinton Avenue, where we are moving our architectural firm after being in the city of Delray for about 20 years. Located on the corner of South Swinton Avenue, the northwest corner of South Swinton Avenue and Southeast 2nd Street. We're proposing 2 wall signs on the west facade and on the south facade. The yellow structure represents obviously the original contributing structure at 143 South Swinton, and the 2 wall signs we are proposing is on the new additions. We're not touching the existing structure. We're not, I guess, tainting the existing structure with any wall signage. We feel that the wall signage kind of minimizes some of the effects of putting signage closer to the building. I think the one on Swinton Avenue is about 60 feet away from the center line of the road, and the one on Southeast 2nd Street is about 50 feet away from the road. This picture shows you kind of the elevations. Obviously the one on top is facing Southeast 2nd Street, located and centered in between the 2 corner windows, kind of proportionate and in balance with the wall area, which it is behind. The scale of the building, it kind of matches the scale of the building. We don't have the landscaping shown on here, but it's also integrated with the landscaping design in front of kind of these, what you could say is kind of barren walls along the elevation and along South Swinton Avenue as well. The signs are approximately about 20 square feet, 10 square feet less than permissible by code, but we obviously reduce them a little bit just to be more in proportion with the wall sign that they're on. And here is a rendering of the 2 same elevations you see here. I just kind of want to touch upon the font, which I'll talk about in a little bit, as well as the material. It's a flat metal aluminum sign. The colors white and a dark gray that kind of matches, the materials kind of matches the aluminum of the windows, as well as the aluminum banding that you can't see here real too well, but it's along the fascia of the roof line, and as well as the same gray color that's used on the base of the building with that horizontal lap siding. The sign is really composed of our logo, the H and M, with 2 lines of script below it. I mean, it's relatively simple, smooth. It kind of juxtaposes with the fenestration of the cedar shingles that we have all along the walls, and it's not clunky. We changed the colors. I don't know if you've noticed, but on all these, oops, I'm sorry, I went the wrong way. Not thank you yet. Oh no, what did I do? I can't start again. I just wanted to go back. Well, you can see it. Our logo is shown on all these, and our logo we've had for 20, 30 years, but we've kind of adjusted the colors of our logo to kind of be more compatible with the building, not to be too garish or standoffish. And I mean, we have had that logo for 20 years, but we felt it was fitting and to hopefully gain your approval as well. Those last 2 slides here, I think you guys all recognize the 2 buildings, both located kind of on the facility that the historic district was named after, and we kind of copied a similar font. Obviously, these are wall signs in the O shed nearby, just to kind of show you how we're being compatible with the neighborhood. We're literally at the beginning, at the south end entrance to the O shed, so we thought it'd be fitting and compatible with the rest of the neighborhood. It's a very similar font as well. It's like a sans serif font that's you can see in some other buildings in and around the O shed, and these are at the Cornell Art Museum as well as the Crest Theater. And that is pretty much it. We're here asking for your approval. And of course, I think you guys are going to make a presentation now. All right. Thank you for your time.
Once again, this is COA 2024-007. The request before the board is for the installation of 2 signs on the exterior of a contributing commercial structure located at 143 South Swinton Avenue within the Old School Square Historic District. So here we have an aerial of the subject property outlined in red, with South Swinton Avenue to the west and Southeast 2nd Street to the south. Some brief history. As previously mentioned, it's located within the locally and nationally registered Old School Square Historic District and is zoned Old School Square Historic Arts District. The property contains a 1-story bungalow-style residential structure built in 1917 and is classified as contributing. The 1,571 square foot structure was built as a single-family residence and was originally owned by John S. and Elizabeth C. Sunday. So initially, in February 6th of 2019, the HPB board denied the request for a Class 5 site plan, landscape plan, and COA with waiver and variance request. That was then revised and approved at its meeting of August 7th of 2019. That included conversion of the existing 1,571 square foot 1-story single-family residence to office, construction of a 1-story 2,826 square foot addition, construction of an 8-space parking lot and landscape improvements, and variances to reduce the terminal landscape island widths at northeast and southeast corners of the property from the required 9 foot to 5 foot, 5.5. During their preparation for construction, the removal of the interior wall surfaces, the applicant found that the existing roof and interior walls were in poor condition, as vertical supports were missing from the roof trusses. So on March 2nd, 2020, the applicant had a site visit come in to determine the existing condition of the structure, and they were advised to reconstruct the roof and do the appropriate structural improvements, which was approved by the board at its meeting of October 6, 2021. This is just sliding on itself. Okay, so here we have the existing or the original survey with the original structure highlighted in blue with the property lines in the dashed red lines. Here we have the approved site plan. Again, existing is in blue and the approved is in red, with Swinton on the left or west side and Southeast 2nd Street to the south or the bottom of the image here. So here we have the front or west elevation. This faces South Swinton Avenue. This is one of the facades that will that's proposed to have one of these signs. Another angle of the front or west elevation, more you can see on the left side, this kind of, the addition is where the one of the proposed signs is to be. Here we have the side or south elevation. This is facing Southeast 2nd Street. This is where the other proposed sign is to be located on this closer portion of the approved addition. Another view of the side or south elevation. Here we have the rear or east elevation of the property. You can see the addition. And then we have the side or north elevation of the property. So here is an elevation from the front or west elevation. Again, this faces South Swinton Avenue with the sign there outlined in red. Both signs are again proposed only on the approved addition. So this is one sign. And then this is the other sign proposed facing Southeast 2nd Street, the south side, again outlined in red. So this is a close-up of the proposed signage details. The height of the sign is proposed to be 3 foot 4 inches and the width being 5 foot 9 inches, roughly 20 square feet, as previously mentioned. Then on the right, there is a profile of the proposed signage, so you can kind of get an idea of how much it protrudes off of the wall. And then this is another proposed sign detail where you can see the contrast of the colors and the better idea of how it's supposed to look. These are the proposed sign materials. They're to be constructed of aluminum, and the colors that are chosen are extra white and rock bottom, so the white and the darker color. So here is a colored rendering. This is, you can see it on the left side there of this proposed signage. This faces South Swinton Avenue. And then a close-up here. Again, this is on South Swinton Avenue. And then we have the other sign on the right there, again on Southeast 2nd Street. And then a close-up here. Okay, so here we have the Secretary of the Interior Standards Rehabilitation that was used to analyze the proposal. And then here we have the Visual Compatibility Standards, which also is used to analyze the proposal, and it's for staff, the board, and the applicant to utilize. So we have an excerpt here from the staff report. The proposed mounting method is not anticipated to affect the historic integrity of the structure, as it can be removed in the future. Here we have an excerpt from the staff report under visual compatibility. It states here that as the original structure was comprised of wood materials, the use of metal for the signage is not typical, but the proposed design of the signs do appear to be complementary to the structure. It's also important to note that this is a residential conversion to commercial, which our guidelines do recommend that they be ground mounted and of the materials that currently exist in the structure. But as I just said, the use of metal is not typical, but it appears complementary to the structure. Here are the findings from our chapter 2. And that concludes my presentation.
Could you go back just a minute more on the findings?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to rebut or add additional comments?
Mr. Chair, sorry, before we get up, if there's any public comment?
Is there any public comment here this evening. Hillary, do you have anything to say? Please go
I just
ahead.
want a real quick comment regarding the materials. I know it's metal and it's the aluminum is also on the walls, and like I mentioned, I mean on the windows, and like I mentioned before, there's also aluminum, the same color on the metal flashing. So even though it's material not typically used for signage, perhaps it is very typical for wall-mounted signage, for one thing, and it's also I'll just leave it at that.
Was wood considered at all?
No, I mean, we wanted something to contrast it, you know, and it's also for the longevity of it, you know, so we don't have to maintain it and keep it more clean and better looking over the years instead of something wood. But
yeah. Thank you. Staff?
None from staff.
Okay.
I have comments. Just minor comments. So the applicant's presentation provided examples. Staff has no issue with the use of metal in this instance. The signs are on the additions. There's no concerns. We merely note in our staff report that when you have a residential conversion, typically it's a ground-mounted sign, but the board can approve, which is why it's before you tonight. If this were a ground-mounted sign, we would have approved of that permit. But the applicant noted the Old School Square property is having metal signs, and that property has been institutional and somewhat commercial in nature, which is the instance where you would see signs like that on the side of the building. So it's really the conversion from residence to office that triggered that comment in our staff report, just to be clear. Thank you.
To the board. Peter, why don't you start?
Sure. Okay, looks very nice, and as a contractor, I think the metal is a good choice for a few reasons. The first being maintenance. The aluminum is dimensionally stable, and with a nice Kynar coating, it'll probably last 20 years, whereas opposed to wood signage would require maintenance after just a short period of years. And I think it's a good choice, and I support it.
Go ahead.
Are there any other properties nearby that have ground-mounted signs? Can I ask staff?
Yeah, throughout our historic districts that are mixed use, there is a mix of ground-mounted and wall sign. So again, the issue is not that the sign is on the wall. It's that staff felt that the board should be making that decision. Should you drive by, that's our litmus test. If a board member drives by and says, who approved that? I don't remember seeing that. Those are the requests we typically put on for your review. So we have a mixture of signs to answer your question of ground and wall mounted. You'll note right on Atlantic Avenue where we have Elisabetta's, and I think it's called the Delray Beach Yacht Club, Haagen-Dazs, those all have wall mounted signs, commercial in nature. You go up down Swinton, you might see some wall signs, but primarily you're seeing ground mounted. A lot of them are on 2 posts with the sign in the middle, or almost a real estate sign, where almost like hanging a shingle, where the sign hangs from the real estate sign.
Okay, in that case, I think it's a nice sign. I appreciate that the orange wasn't used to keep with the character of the historic house, even though I like the orange, but this fits the architecture, and I love what you've done with the place in general, and I think the sign fits nicely, so I would support this.
No, I concur. I think it's modest. It's smaller than it could have been. It's not backlit. It's not neon. Communicates the usage of the building, especially in a mixed use. You want to make sure that people know it's a commercial building, not a residence. And I feel it's appropriate, and I'm in support.
I just have one question. I guess staff can answer it. I did notice, I think it's in the staff report, where it said that indirect lighting could be used. Are they planning on doing any lighting, like at night? Like, how are you going to see?
That's a question for the applicant. Their proposal does not include lighting, so we assumed there is none. But Mr. Mayo could come up and speak to that.
Yep, we are proposing uplighting, not backlit, on the ground, uplighting it just at night.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would be nice if they could light it so that anybody driving by could obviously promote your business, not just during the day.
Yeah, and it's really more of a wayfinding sign. I mean, it's not like we're putting it out by the street to
Right.
everyone to point us out. It looks better without the ground mounted, big open green space, and it kind of helps with the entrance of the OSHA there. And there used to be a historic, or the OSHA district sign nearby over there, which is no longer there. I don't know if they're planning on putting that back or not, but if that does come back, we thought a ground-mounted sign would kind of be a little bit in conflict with that as well.
I can talk to you about that offline.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. I support it. I think
Okay.
it's very, very well done.
John Brewer?
No questions, no issues. Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple of small things. I was wondering about the light as well, so thank you on that, Kristen. And I'm pretty sure you were clear on this, but I just want to ask it anyway. Each of the elements of the sign are separate and separately attached to the wall. There's not a plate or something back there, including the Hanlon Mayo and so forth.
Yes, you're correct. That picture there on the right kind of shows you all the attachments. It's all pin-mounted, individual letters. It's not like a big backdrop on it or a backplate on it that gets sandwiched. So it'll look nice. It'll give it some dimensionality, and it's not covering up all the cedar shingles.
One other question. I assume these shingles will get grayish over time, and that might conflict somewhat with your color scheme?
Sure. I mean, we're definitely planning on having to provide some kind of maintenance to this, but we left the color of the shingles a natural color, it's just a clear sealant over it.
So they might not age like to a gray color?
No, every once in a while you gotta pressure wash it and reseal it, and it should clean up.
Okay.
No maintenance on it. Yeah, they, just like anything, I guess, they'll turn a little gray and dirty.
Sure.
Yeah.
Either that or sun bleached them.
Yes.
I really like this, and I actually like the wall mounting better than a freestanding sign, because I think we tend to get too much street and yard clutter with signs in this town anyway, so I really like that. I feel that it's very restrained and very subtle, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you all.
So if there are no further comments, Diane, can you call the roll?
We do a motion, please.
Let me come back here. Yes, who would like to make a motion, Kristen?
I'm trying to find it. I would like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness to 2024-007 for the property located at 143 South Swinton Avenue, Old School Square Historic District, by finding that the request and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
Second.
Now we'll call the roll.
John Miller,
Yes.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Chris Cabezas,
Yes.
John Brewer,
Yes.
Ivan Hurdy absent, Kristen Finn,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Michelle, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think we're up to the Cathcart House.
Once again, I'm Michelle Hewitt, and I'd like to read into the record COA 2023-173, Certificate of Appropriateness and Relocation for the Cathcart House located at 30th South Swinton Avenue. The agent is here, Mr. Mike Cavelli, to present this item.
Good evening, Mike Cavelli.
Sorry, before you get started, Mr. Cavelli, could you just see if there's ex parte communications from the board? Thanks, Mr. Chair.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
John Brewer.
No.
None.
No.
No.
None.
No. No communication.
You may
Okay.
start, Mr. Cavelli.
Mike Cavelli, Cavelli Design, 1209 South Swinton Avenue. Tonight you have a COA. Oh, I need the clicker here. In front of you for Cathcart House. We all know where Sunday Village is. Tonight we're going to be talking about Cathcart, which is in Block 61, and this is where it is located on the certified plan. Little history, you may remember the previously certified plan was to build a parking garage, drainage vault, and then bring the houses and place them back in positions per the site plan. When PEB took ownership of it, we evaluated this plan and felt that for the longevity of these houses to have foundations that are half on a drainage structure and half on a parking garage, or half on a drainage structure and half on soil was really not very conducive to the longevity of those houses. So we redesigned the project, and in 2022 we certified the site plan that moved all of the houses so that they are all on soil. The two houses in red, one in the middle is Cathcart, were not to be moved, and the other four have been moved and are now on permanent foundations. So we're making progress, and I might say they are all moved with no mishaps. And we actually moved Building D to the Sunday House property, and that is now residing on a new foundation down in Block 62 as well. Just a quick little history. This is an archive photo that we got from the Historic Society, and the reason I wanted to show you this is this is really the way the house was. This is what we planned to bring the house back to, with the shake shingles, and I think it's significant to note that there were no railings on the first floor. Somewhere along the line, some railings got put on there, and we did confirm it was a wooden porch. And a little more history, it was built in 1903 by Leatherman. He sold it to the Cathcarts in 1911. They lived there for 55 years before they sold it to James Journey. According to archives, James got into the structural elements of the house, and he discovered that it was just a massive job, and he gave up. Later that year, he sold it to Dave Hubbard. And then a few years later, it was sold to Fran Matera, and then in 71, the Snyders got control of the house. So Cathcarts lived in it for 55 years, and then in a 5-year period, it changed hands 4 times. So there were some issues. Mr. Snyder was up to the challenge to try and to do repairs and fix it. And he did a lot of work on the house, including the rear porch enclosure and an addition in the rear that was a result of Mrs. Snyder having an injury. Then she couldn't use the stairs to get upstairs. And the archives also quote them as saying they replaced the boards on the porch 3 times before they decided to pour it in concrete. So we know that concrete porch was the result of a maintenance thing. It wasn't necessarily later on the best thing for them to do or the way to do it, because it created other issues. In the current COA that was approved in the 2020 plan, you can see in this image the addition on the rear and the enclosure of the porches in the rear. These were approved for removal as a non-historic, and so we've worked to take those out. Also in those plans was a comment with regards to removal of the concrete patio and removal of the first floor railings, as well as putting the porch back and with the skirting as per the original house. Here's a photograph of looking from the front of the house, where you can see the concrete porch and the wall of where the enclosure started to close the porch in around the north side of the building. Notice that at the concrete porch there are no air holes for circulation, so putting this porch here with no ventilation under the house on this porch caused some damage. In the construction phase of this, this is showing the removal of the enclosure and the addition that was on the rear of the house. This is looking at the north part of the house. Also note that there's a column on the left there, the white column in the concrete, that you see boards attached to the bottom of that column. That's because the column rotted out from the concrete holding moisture. And so the boards were placed in there to keep the column from continuing to sink down into as it rotted. So there were structural issues created from trying to not have to replace boards. We do know from this photograph of what the boards look like on the porch. We know the dimensions of them, so we can put them back in the same fashion. Here's an example of an attempt to repair structural damage, where you see the board tacked on the bottom of this joist, and then concrete poured next to the original piers to try and secure this. And if you in under the house, there's a lot of things. Also, it's interesting, when they enclosed it, they put plywood or sheathing over top of the existing porch, which appeared to have been rotten to begin with. So they really didn't do any justice to the longevity of the structure because of this. And here's a view under the structure. And if you look at the top of the picture, you can see the rotten wood in the flooring of the house. And you'll see that there are random piers placed in various places all through the underside of the house that were done to actually secure and try to help sagging portions of the house. And I'm pretty sure this electric isn't up to code. Going farther back in, you'll see another repair to the left, where you see the brick pier that was done, and then you see a longer pier that was poured with another board on top of that, trying to create support for this. And this is typical of various places. Here's one where you see the black beam that was placed under one of the main beams of the house, and you can, over by the pipe on the right, you can see the vertical boards going up. Those are the actual vertical walls of the house that are on this beam. So there was an attempt to try, and you can also see the rotten wood in the joist above. So as we got into this and started peeling back the parts of it, it just got to where we said, well, we're going to really need to do this right and lift the house. The method we're going to use is what was used on the 1120 Nassau house. And if you see that the windows are removed, and you see the girders going through the middle of the house as well as under the house, because of this being a two-story structure, we're going to do this method so that we can actually support the second floor. Because when we take the concrete porch off, there's nothing to actually support the upper level of the house. So we're going to use that. And here you can see how the house is starting to be secured for lateral support, and as well as some of the girders starting to be put in place. So that, and these will be supported from a system that comes from inside through the windows, so that when the house is lifted, that all of this will be stable and secure, and we don't have to worry about losing the porches or the upper roofs. As far as the foundation, we're going to actually pour a slab, and the edges will be thickened to support the columns, in which are the red dots around the perimeter. And then in the middle, there will be an actual concrete block wall built that will support the vertical walls of the building. And once the building is set back down on this, from the inside of the house, they'll drill through the sill plates of the walls and actually bolt this down into the foundation. So very good, solid construction that'll last a long time. Here's an example of how we did Building C. The house is suspended above while the block wall for the foundation is being placed. The little empty spots are where ventilation goes, to provide proper ventilation under the house, because it is wood. And here it is placed down on the foundation and bolted into place, and you can see all the ventilation ducts. When the site is graded, this wall won't be as tall, and the porches and the decking and all the other things in landscaping will blend it in. But this gives you a good idea of how this is done. On Cathcart house, once it's bolted on like this, the porches will be built so you won't see this wall because the porches will extend out all around. So, it's pier foundation that is basically the house is held on the piers by gravity and the weight of the house versus a slab with a stem wall, which is where it's bolted on. We feel like this is really the right thing to do and the proper way to go about restoring this house. It gives us the ability to replace all of the structural elements under the house while it's elevated. And once it's bolted down, it's on a secure foundation that isn't going to sink. It's not going to crack. It gives us a really good, solid foundation for restoring the house, so it'll last for many years to come. As far as the COA, it's compliance with land development regulations, the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, Delray Beach Preservation Design Guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, all can have positive findings found with this. Staff did a great job in going through all those in the staff report. We concur with the staff report, and I would love it if you would approve this. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you. Who is going to take this one now?
Hi, good evening. Michelle Hoyland, Principal Planner with Development Services, for the record. So 2023-173 is a COA and a relocation request for the Cathcart House. Yes, some of our information is going to duplicate the applicant, but it's important that we do enter this into the record, so be patient with us, please. So as you know, the Cathcart House is situated mid-block of the first block south of Atlantic Avenue along South Swinton Avenue. It is part of the larger Sunday Village development project. A little bit of history about the Cathcart House. It was built in 1902 as a two-story, 3,100 square foot French colonial style building. It has a former address of 38 South Swinton Avenue, and it had remained a residence for years up until the most recent approval, which will have it converting to commercial space. The Cathcart name is associated with the early pioneer family who lived in the house from 1902 to 1966. Later, the Snyder family lived in the home, and Virginia was a reporter and a private investigator. The Cathcart House is considered a crown jewel, if I haven't said that already. It has mostly a regular plan exhibiting a wide hipped roof that extends over a second floor veranda style porch on the both first and second floor. That is one of the most identifying features of the French colonial style. As it's part of that larger mixed-use development known as Sunday Village, which spans these 4 blocks, some of you may remember that when this went to the board most recently for the modification to buildings 1, 2, and 3 that front West Atlantic Avenue, the property owner took inspiration from the Cathcart House and designed those new structures or changed their architecture from the previous approval to an inspired French colonial, we called it Anglo-Caribbean style. So there has been a progression of approvals that you all may or may not be aware of. The applicant, I think, did a nice job summarizing those. But what we're looking at right now is the progress that's occurring within the development. The project is under construction. You've seen the timeline videos that we bring to you every once in a while. The majority of the historic homes have had their relocations occurred already, lifting, putting back down onto a solid foundation. That ensures their longevity over time. The parking garage being dug, and there is vertical construction happening on the buildings that face Atlantic Avenue. So in the applicant's investigation, through structural analysis of this property, and we've worked very closely with them through this entire process. And once they pulled away the landscaping, we really got a better look at the Cathcart house. You can see that there's a ton of support here. There's bracing and supports. We have a monthly construction meeting with the applicant, and in some of these meetings, we've identified concerns for the structural stability of the building. I thought we were seeing some type of sag happening, so they leapt into action and got these girders and shoring placed on the porch all the way around the building. The request that's before you is to vertically elevate the building, create a new foundation underneath, and then lower the building back down onto that foundation. Also, part of that includes removal of the concrete wraparound porch and replacement with a wood porch floor deck, as well as structural stability measures occurring under the building as well. So we're at progress at this point. This, I think, it's somewhat of a formality, but it's important that the board review this as a relocation. Our code specifies if you move a building that you have to follow certain measures. The applicant has done a great job in outlining how that move is going to happen, the structural information from Youssef, who's their structural engineer. They really have taken every opportunity to ensure that this building will survive that move. We've had conversations about other projects, successful and non-successful, and what we've learned from those projects, such as the train station. Taking the concrete around the portico away from the building had an effect on the portico's structure. So we've advised them about that as well. We feel confident that the move will be successful, but at this point it can only just be the move that has to occur. So in your staff report, you will see a thorough analysis that addresses the Secretary of the Interior standards, the visual compatibility standards, Chapter 4.5.1 as it specifically relates to relocation, moving of a building. Bonds will have to be put in place. That's part of the building permit. All requirements that were the applicant submitted met these requirements of the code. So we, at this point, present to the board, that this relocation needs to occur to ensure the Cathcart house structural stability as it moves and has longevity in the Old School Square Historic District. We have a number of different graphics available. The presentation, we've tried to include everything that was approved, existing, approved, and proposed. So you have, any questions that you may want to go back and specify, zoom in on something. Also, please note that with this site, I don't know if we have an overall site plan. Here we go. We'll use this. I don't have an overall site plan here, but in and around the houses that are next to the Cathcart house, some of them were picked up, shifted on site, an underground storage tank, what's the best word here? Storm vault, thank you, was constructed to help with the retention of water on the site. So those houses have since been moved and placed back, and some of them sit on top. Cathcart does not sit on top of that storm vault. The storm vault is around the structure. So when the applicant mentioned that dirt was going to grade back in on these structures, that's absolutely correct. Once the project moves forward to the next phase of site work, the site will have landscaping and dirt, sod that will grade in, and the buildings won't look like they're sticking up out of the ground. So I think that's really it. We find that the application can meet the requirements of the code, and at this point, that concludes my presentation.
Mr. Cavelli, any response?
I have one comment.
Sorry, before you start,
Oh,
if
the public.
you could see if there's
Public
any public comment,
comments.
please. Thank you.
Mr. Long, do you have any comments?
Of course. I wasn't here, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's never stopped me.
And
Does he need to be
yeah.
sworn in?
Diane,
George
could
Long,
you?
46 North Swinton Avenue.
Sorry, Mr. Long. Before you get started, if we could just swear you in. Thank you.
Please raise your right hand by the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'd like to quote the famous Harry Belafonte. A house built on a weak foundation will not stand. Oh no, oh no. Calypso. Anyway, it's important. I've seen houses on piers, Pensacola here, places, and they last a long time. But when they go, they can be harder than hell to get back up. You need a good, a good foundation is very important. Thank you. Bye.
Now proceed. Thank you, George.
I have one comment. Could you put my presentation back up very quickly, please? Excellent. No, I get it. That's good. If you can let me. It's not going forward. Here you go. Okay, I'm going. The other way. Oh, okay. I'm at the end. You didn't restart it.
May I help you? Let me help you.
Go to the beginning. All right, then open it up. There we go. Now I can move from there.
I hate that this little bar slides up and down. I know the purpose of it.
Okay. I just wanted to point one thing out. Nothing is on the drainage structure. Okay, I think that's really important that everybody is very clear on that. And I guess the other thing is no one is forcing us to do this. This is the right thing to do for this house. So we want to keep them all going. So thank you.
It was the old plan that had
Yeah.
them on
Yes.
the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should let John Miller go first here, since this is his project in some respects.
I appreciate it, but no, I've been following this one for a long time, but a lot of other people has as well. So, I appreciate the history that the applicant put forward on this. I'm very happy that it didn't burn down over the last few years. This will be the gem of Del Rey and of Oshad when this thing wraps up. So I'm in full support. I thought the plan was to lift this and put a new foundation under it all along. At least that's what was discussed years ago. So I thought that was already approved. And then, not pertaining to this project, but maybe in comments afterwards, I just wanted to see if there was any plans for that original coquina stone wall that had been out front. So those are my comments.
Would you like me to respond to the wall?
Sure.
So the coquina wall has been taken off the site and is over on the south side of Block 69, so now south of the Federspiel parking garage, and it waits there until the project reaches a point where they can reinstall the wall at the location. As far as the structure having a relocation previously, the first approval proposed relocation of the Cathcart house. The modified Class 3 that the applicant came back with did not propose relocation of the Cathcart house. However, I think we all assumed it would have to happen, but the actual formality of what we're doing essentially was voided. So that's why we're back with this particular request.
No, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. Chris?
I had just a question. The bond, that is, if anything happens during the move of this house and the lifting, if there's a structural issue or if it even collapses and falls apart, does that cover the reconstruction of this house?
So the bond is in place. If you read through 451, all of the requirements that are in the code, noted in the staff report, but also in chapter 10, or is it 710, which is moving of a building. Those requirements were all put in place in response to a structure that fell apart previously, and we didn't have requirements in the code. So these requirements do place the responsibility on the applicant to, number one, if anything happens, they're required to call us within 24 hours, where staff and the building official go out and inspect the site. And then the applicant and staff work together to develop a plan of action where they likely will come back before the board to address whatever they might need to do, repair, reconstruct. So the bond is in place to protect all parties and ensure that there's a liability and responsibility.
Good to know those details. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm in full support of this project. I think it's a beautiful house, and it will be the gem, I think, of this development. So I'm in support.
Peter.
No questions. I think it's a great structure to save, and very pleased to see it happening.
John, we started with Kristen, we'll end with Kristen.
Okay. No, I'd like to commend you. I mean, like you said, you didn't have to go through, and I keep thinking of the Shelley Long, Tom Hanks movie, The Money Pit. It seems like every time you guys peeled a layer of the onion back, it's like a whole new set of circumstances. So, my short time being part of this board, I'm really coming up to speed on this project, and saw the re-application and the redoing of it, and I am so excited to see this. I think this is really going to be something. I hope you're memorializing everything as you go through this, because I think 50 years from now, people are going to want to hear the story of how this project, if it comes to fruition the way it looks like it's going to come to fruition, it's not only going to be a gem for Delray Beach, I think it's going to be a gem for South Florida and maybe even the country. So thank you.
Notwithstanding, I love the Cathcart House. It's probably one of my very favorite houses in all of Delray Beach. I've driven by there. We've lived in Delray Beach for 19 years. Driven by that house and thought, I would love to live in that house with the double porches. And I love that you discovered the wood boards, the old wood boards, because that just speaks to my heart. Like, nothing better than if it had a little creak in the wood boards. I know there won't be, because you've taken such good care in the foundation and everything. I just wanted to ask if there was a date after. Looks like we're going to approve the project. If we approve the project, is there a date for the proposed move?
The applicant will need to respond to that. They're likely going to tell you it depends on permits.
Oh, okay.
But let's assume they have permits in hand.
Okay.
Then what's the progress?
We actually have the bonding company on standby.
Wow.
For us to call them and say, issue the bond. Understand that this isn't going to be like a long, drawn-out process. The parking garage roof of the parking garage, the deck of the parking garage is almost done. Vertical construction's coming out of the ground on top of that. This has to get done. This has to get done to get it out of the way, so that the utilities can go in. All of the other items that are associated with this site development has to get done. So this will happen very quickly.
Well, I'm very excited. I can't wait.
If you could stay up there for a moment. A couple times we've referenced a prior experience in moving a building, and I looked very closely at that you have a specialist in moving historic buildings, but I just wanted to pick on one thing here a little bit. You talked about the study showed that the roof was in good shape, but every time I drive by it, it looks like the roof is sagging. And I'm just wondering if that roof does represent a problem during the move. We kind of focus on the foundation and all of that, but what about the roof?
We have discovered that some of these 4x4 columns had rotted at the base, and there is a little bit of a sag. When we talked with staff about it, as you see, we put all of the girders underneath the second floor, underneath the porch on the second floor, to provide the support so that any lack of support from at the ground level is really no longer an issue. So what we've done is we've shored this up from underneath the second floor, so that is sound and provides the support from there up the column into the roof. And once this gets put on the foundation, all of that will get leveled and squared away. So we don't really feel like it's a structural issue in terms of that's going to be affected by the move, primarily because of the method that we're using, because it'll be stabilized from the inside as well and lifted from underneath, rather than the way we move the other houses where we put a girders underneath the whole structure and just lifted it. Mm-hmm. Well, now we're lifting like from the middle of the house, suspending from the bottom, lifting up and pushing up. So it's a completely different process that we're using to ensure that we don't have an issue when we lift this house.
But one, I assume it's been used before.
Yes, we showed an example of another house that it was done on that had a similar really shaky structural situation, and it was moved successfully with no issue.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more question for the applicant. Obviously, construction methods have changed since this house went up. These were probably all put together with nails. I'm assuming as you go through here and retrofit everything, you're putting in hurricane ties and using screws and doing it the right way so the roof doesn't come off the next time.
The inside will be stripped. Mm-hmm. Every connection of wood members will have hurricane clips put in place, and then drilling down through the wall sill plates into the foundation and bolted in. So everything will be unitized internally before the new walls coverings get put on.
I assume so. I just wanted to check. Thank you.
The goal is that these are here a long time. This is a huge investment to do this. You want to make sure it stays through storms. So yes, it's all in the plan.
Great.
Okay. Any other comments? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the relocation of 2023-173 for the property located at Cathcart House, Old School Square Historic District, by finding that the request and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
Second.
No further discussion. Diane, call the roll.
John Miller,
Yes.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Chris Capezes,
Yes.
John Brewer,
Yes.
Ivan Heredia absent, Kristen Finn,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Watch for the exciting activities.
Yeah.
We'll see the next video.
Yes.
Okay, so we are done with our regular agenda. We have no legislative items, so that brings us to reports and comments. Our next board meeting is December 6th, Wednesday, December 6th. You'll also note at your seat you have an updated schedule. I think we may have emailed you one. Please note the date of January The board meeting for January is not the first Wednesday, it's the third Wednesday. So January 17th, mark your calendars. Put these dates in your iPhones, Android, paper calendars, whatever you all use, and save those dates. The Atlantic Avenue Historic District Symposium occurred last week, and I think it was very successful. It was a great example of great togetherness on staff's part in putting this symposium together and organizing it. It did take quite a bit of planning and coordination, getting the speakers here, Parks and Rec, providing support, the DDA, the Public Information Officer, just all of the hands that went into this project to pull it together. It was a lot of fun. It was hard work, but it was a lot of fun, and having the experience to bring all of these groups, our teams together, to provide an educational opportunity to the community and the public on historic preservation. While the event, I think as we moved over time, we noted we probably should have just called it the Historic Symposium, because the topics that were covered touch on historic preservation generally. It was in response to the ordinance for the Atlantic Avenue Historic District that this symposium came together to provide that educational opportunity. So the speakers were Megan McLaughlin, who's with Placerbia, Ruben Acosta, who's a bureau chief at the State of Florida Division of Historical Resources, Donovan Ripkema, who's with his firm is Place Economics, and then Tim McClendon, who is University of Florida law professor and attorney. So if you didn't have a chance to watch all of it and tune in, please make sure that you do set some time aside to listen to the day's events. Day 1 was presentations, and day 2 was a Q&A session with the community where they got to get up and ask questions, express concerns. We were really at a feedback point. We want to hear we've heard so much from our board members, from staff, from the commission. We need to hear from the owners on what kind of incentives, what would make this valuable to them, what are their concerns. So we're continuing to have one-on-one meetings with the individual property owners within the district. And then eventually we'll have a roundtable with those owners should they decide to come and sit together with us and talk it through. And then we'll decide and get direction on what the next step is moving forward with the ordinance to City Commission. So I don't know if any of you had questions about it or wanted to make comments. This would be a nice time to do so.
I mean, I'll make a comment. I was there both days, albeit the first day I had to skip out early. I thought it was great. Kudos to staff for putting it together. The speakers were top notch. I think the comments the second day were about what I expected. Some were for, some were against, some were misinformed, but that's kind of how it goes. I did speak to a couple of commissioners after the fact, and they want to make sure that everybody's on board. But as I stated during the symposium, you're never going to get everybody on board. You're never going to get first of all, never probably going to get a consensus. Second of all, you're never going to be able to get in touch with all of these remote owners or investment companies or hedge funds or whatever is investing in Delray these days. So at some point we're going to have to move forward on it, and that was my suggestion that, all right, let's get this thing, reach out to whoever we can reach out to, and then somebody's got to vote on it at some point. So that was my thought. So other than that, I thought it was fantastic, and it was good to see so many people there. So there was a lot more people there than I thought. So I thought it was great.
Anybody else? Christina, were you there part of it?
I was just going to say, unfortunately I was involved in the Historical Society, the Fall Fest, and it kind of fell on those days, so I wasn't able to go to either event. So I'm looking forward to watching it. But thank you guys for hosting it. John was kind of filling me in a little bit on what was happening. So sad I missed it, but I was involved in other city things. So
Fall Fest looked
Yeah.
like so much fun.
It was
when
so
we
much
walked out of
fun.
the building on Thursday.
it was so much
It
fun.
was a nice crowd. It just looked like classic hometown.
Yeah, it was.
Really proud to see the work that the Historical Society is putting in to plan events over there, and their support and their board. It just felt, I don't know if anybody ever watched Gilmore Girls, but I felt like it feels like Stars Hollow.
So I had a couple of comments. I want to join what others have said. That was just an amazing experience. Very professional, very fact-based, and lots of very good information for those of us who were there. I think that Michelle and I talked about this a little bit earlier, that some of the comments most of the comments were very positive. John mentioned there was a mix, but I would say 75% or so were positive.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think there were a couple of comments that came out that are worth considering and talking a little bit about what your next steps are, Michelle. One that surprised me was there was some concern that all of the attention was being given to east of Swinton. And as we all know, the original study was from I-95 all the way to the beach. And it was decided, I think, all but there's only one contributing building on West Atlantic. And some people in some of the communities there are upset about that, feeling that the minority communities in particular had a role in the beginning of this city in the 1880s and 1890s, and that we are ignoring that with this historic designation. And I'm sure there's all sorts of different rebuttals and different points of view on that, but it is a feeling by at least some people. And if there's something that we can do to recognize either the buildings that are still there or were there and their function, that might be something that would bring the community together, east and west. The other thing that I paid particular attention to was the issue of TDRs, which we've talked about in this group a number of times, the idea of transfer development rights and air rights, where if there are property owners who feel that there has been a taking or that they are somehow unable to get the full benefit of their investment from years past, that TDRs are a way to look at that you can take the hypothetical space above their building that they think they own and transfer that ownership. And it gets to be a very complicated process, as I think all of us know, but it certainly, I got the feeling that was kind of the hot button in the whole discussion, even before certain property owners got up there and talked about it. I know Anthea has had a lot of experience with TDRs. I know that assistant city managers had experience with it. They are proven, they are problematic and very complicated and sometimes controversial. But it might be a way to get the entire community behind what we all as a board unanimously agreed to.
I would just add, I agree with Jim, but I also, as you mentioned earlier tonight, you're talking about incentives. And there's always been a lot of sticks when it comes to this historic preservation. Can't do this, can't do that, blah, blah, blah. What are the carrots? So we need a lot more carrots, and whether it's tax breaks or in lieu parking or whatever else, I hate to see just anybody get in lieu. I would love to see in lieu go away completely, other than situations like this. So, or historic, where you can't physically fit the parking in there. So I know you're working on it, but in my mind, more carrots would get the job done.
I wish the people there would have had the opportunity to hear your presentation, Michelle, because I think a lot of those questions were answered in that presentation. And that's not a knock at all on the people who spoke, but you put that together, I assume, with Richard Eisenbottle, and it was excellent. So maybe there's an opportunity. I know that's out there on the website, but maybe there's an opportunity to present that as part of the process.
My staff and I have discussed adding a page onto the Historic Preservation website that puts this where to watch here. But, we've been telling people about April and June. Those were the 2 meetings where I did that very long. Some folks felt like it was too long, but that was the time to get the information on the record. Those 2 presentations. So I'm thinking, as I'm hearing you speak, maybe we also put links to those 2 videos there as well, because we've been telling property owners about those meetings. At the symposium, we highlighted those as a place to go back and hear the presentation on the whole effort. So I think that's a really good suggestion. I think we can potentially add some more information to the historic pages of the website. This is the workshop page. If you go watch, you see on the left navigation, and it this is Delray Beach special workshops. So as workshops are added, this may move down in the priority list. So I think we can have it in another spot too.
I think it was thrown up on YouTube as well. I saw
Yeah.
it pop up.
So all of our meetings are through Granicus, which is the video setup, but then everything's also backed up on YouTube. So we could put those direct links right to that. It's a great suggestion.
Are you guys reaching out to some of the owners that couldn't be here? I can't imagine owners not being able, send a representative. This is important. I feel like the absence of some owners, if that's what I'm hearing, because again, I don't know all the facts, but the absence is kind of that's your thing. This is important. So if you can't be here in person, then send a representative to make a decision. But the fact that you're evading or avoiding or not showing up, to me, maybe if you guys you obviously know all the owners or the person in Sunbiz that's listed, maybe if you could email this link and just say, hey, here's the link in case you missed it. Here's this.
It's a great suggestion. We have emails for 90% of the owners that are within the proposed historic district. So we have mailed them. First of all, back when we did the ordinance, that was mailed to them, and almost 1,000 other people within the 500-foot radius of the proposed district. So it was a huge mailing notifying the public. Posted on the website, posted at City Hall. Then once the symposium happened, we began direct mail with those owners, emailing, calling ones that we knew, that we had phone numbers for, and then another mailing. So there has been a number of outreach efforts that aren't over, that we will continue. But that's another great idea, is to maybe come up with hey, the symposium happened, here's where you can go and watch it. Right. The thing is, we can't force people to come in. We've had a really good turnout, though, with our one-on-one meetings that have occurred before the symposium. We've met with, I think, 18 different owners. Not 18 owners, but owners of 18 different properties, because you have some owners that own multiple, and some that will send a representative because they are a company who is out of town or maybe making an investment in a purchase of several properties. And some are small town, hometown businesses. So it's just really a mix. But I think that's a really good idea too, is to mail them another FYI. We could certainly do that.
Just to extend that a little bit and not make the meeting any later than it is. We tend to forget there are a lot of residents, and there are more and more residents in that area, and a lot of them have come there because of sort of the historic character, certainly the unique character of Atlantic Avenue. So it's not just Atlantic Avenue itself, and not just the property owners of Atlantic Avenue. It's the merchants, obviously, but the people who walk there from their homes for dinner or concerts. And I think we sometimes forget that and don't really capture their input on some of these things.
Yeah, we have people who live in the proposed historic district. There was a woman who came and spoke at the symposium.
Irene Revelis.
Yep. And she lives at the corner of Atlantic and 4th. So we definitely have residents who are within the district. I've spoken to her, but from a different vantage point. And she's got very valuable input as well. It's interesting because our one-on-one meetings that we've been holding, they have been truly a meeting of the minds, and these owners have been wonderful. Even if they're opposing the effort, the fact that they're taking the time to sit down with staff and give feedback. And sometimes we kind of have happy accidents where we happen upon a potential incentive. So we're keeping track of anything and everything we have, not to discount the fact that we have great incentives already. What more can we add? Of course, people are going to ask. It's almost like a negotiation, right? How are you going to sweeten the pot? But we have great incentives already. So, if we can come up with a set of things that we add, that's all going to be by direction of the commission. Staff doesn't unilaterally decide what the incentives will be. It needs to be decided in the public, the commission and the citizens. What do they want? You don't want to come through and just with a swath say this is what you get. So we're very aware of that.
Michelle and I also talked about one other thing, and a number of you, I think, are new up here and don't know about this, but approximately a year and a half ago, this city, or this board, had a special workshop on historic preservation of the natural environment, not just the man-made environment. And was there a role for the city and for this board in that? That was researched by staff with Kelly's direction of how to do this. And then Anthea sent a memo proposing it be considered by the city commission to the city manager, who then forwarded it on to the city commission. And then things like elections occurred, and there were changes in other priorities. So I think it's been at least 6 months, if not almost a year, that has been presented to the commission with no action. And I'm just wondering, should we try to reinvigorate that in some way? It might be an idea to share the presentation that we made to the new board members.
Yes, I'd like to learn more about that.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that. I did look at the tree report online, so it's great, but it only covers public property. Okay. So medians, public parks, that type of thing. So some of the heritage trees, I guess you could call them, are on private property, but they're still, in my mind, worth saving if at all possible. So
I can email a copy of the memo, the presentation that Mr. Chard provided to the board, and the link to the video where you all can go and watch the discussion that happened at the board. At this point, I don't know if there's a renewal of the memorandum that needs to happen. That certainly could be something with new commissioners where you may want to grab their attention or let them know, like, this occurred, not sure that you're aware. We've got, new commissioners now, and then potentially 2 or 3 coming up in March. So
it's up to the board. We're always welcome to renew it, send it again, send it with some different information, additional information, whatever.
Was this for city-owned land or for any landscape feature?
It was unclear.
Okay.
Purposely.
So, what I would highly suggest is after tonight, like tomorrow, not tonight, I'll send you the memo, the link to the video and the presentation, and then the board can have between now and the December meeting to digest that. And then at the December meeting, you can decide what direction you want to go to, renewing the memo or however you want to handle it.
We should also be clear that this is a different issue from providing purview to this board on landscape plans for single-family dwellings, right? This is not a landscape plan per se. It is a historic preservation issue with the natural environment.
Yeah, right now the code does not require the Historic Preservation Board review landscape plans for single-family residential, and we think that's a good thing. We want to make preservation as easy as possible for our homeowners, but it does go through permit. So there still is our staff still looks at those permits, meaning Catherine and Michelle, our senior landscape planner, looks at the permit. So it's not that it just slides right through, but we're also navigating very sensitive things like Florida statutes. There are statutes in place that protect private property owners' rights when it comes to removal of trees on their property that we cannot usurp with our code. So I think not having single family at the board level for review makes it easy for the applicant. But Jim's right. This wasn't about changing that part of the process.
Yeah, and if it's a PRC or something like that comes up and there's, historic, 100-year-old oaks or whatever on that, that's where I'm interested in seeing what we can do to preserve those trees, that move something around and save the tree instead of just, scraping the entire, acreage clean and
It's
starting
tough.
over with non-native. Yeah.
We feel the same. There's been a few specific sites I can think of with important trees I'm thinking of. We still can't get around the Florida statutes when it comes to those properties. Those statutes allow a owner, if they need to take a tree down to make way for new construction, or if they feel it's unsafe and have somebody write a report that says it's unsafe, it's gone. So it's unfortunate. But I think that there definitely, can be more discussion. I think what I'll also send you is I'll look for the meeting where we discussed artificial turf, because we did have a presentation on artificial turf to the board. Now, what was adopted, it was massaged as it moved through the boards, but it was a good conversation at that meeting. So
I think without being a lawyer, I do think that there are ways we can use incentives rather than regulations of thou shalt not, and say, well, maybe we can give tax breaks if you save that 100-year-old tree. Maybe there's some things along that way, or maybe we can use the 10,000 trees that Community Greening is planting to do the landscaping if they're willing to do natives.
I think what we should do is let everybody watch, and then have that discussion at our next meeting under board discussion. So that will get everybody kind of thinking about options and ideas. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else on the agenda?
I don't have anything. Do you all have anything? I hope I'm not missing anything, but
Okay.
I don't think I have anything else.
Okay, I think some of the board may have some points.
I just have a couple of comments. I'm not sure of the address, but Alice Speck's old place, I saw they replaced all the windows. They smoothed over that stucco wall. Just wanted to make sure everything was kosher.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, Lake
Seven.
Ida.
Lake Ida. Oh,
Yeah.
It's not.
Lake Ida.
Okay.
Well, fourth.
I had a feeling. So it's on your radar, though. Okay.
That's walking distance from my house.
Yeah. Well, another one that's walking distance of your house, 415 North Swinton. So that's directly across Swinton from Trinity. I have a note here. It just says years. It's been years.
That guy.
Yeah. So, I'm assuming it's with code enforcement at this point, but that needs another look.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, the windows are boarded up. There's been nothing done. The landscaping's not complete. He's got little skeletons now in front of the boarded up windows. It's way beyond. So, all right.
I will ask
Obviously
code
ran out of money
enforcement.
somewhere along the line, but we just, the city can't leave it like that.
I will ask code enforcement to check in on the status.
Thank you.
Did they ever paint behind the new Delray Yacht Club sign? Remember that was brought up one of the past meetings that you could still see like the old signage.
bull bar?
Wasn't that bull bar? That was brought up and I haven't checked.
We'll check.
We were pretty clear with the new owners of that building on Lake Ida with what they could do and not do. It appears that we weren't clear enough.
No, you were crystal clear.
Well, it is improving. I'll just say, as someone in the neighborhood, it is nice to see the improvement. The structure was neglected for a very long time, and it has new windows in it now. The changes look mainly positive.
I would ask you to reserve comment at this point because I love that you're saying that, but it may end up before you.
Yes.
And I wouldn't want somebody to hold your comments against you.
Being new, forgive me, please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but it is nice to see progress. I agree. Yeah. Anybody
That's it?
else?
John? No? All right. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Clean up all my wrappers. Like dinner.
Did you
Right,
eat
yeah.
yours?
Oh, I ate
Did you
half
Sandy?
of Ivan's. I'm glad he wasn't
Sandy?
here.
I'm super interested in that the landscape portion.